Barron Trump helps a taxi driver in financial trouble. What he does next changes their life. Ethan slowly walked into the grand lobby of the Waldorf Hotel, his worn shoes making a faint click against the polished marble floor. He gripped the card Barron had handed him the day before, his heart pounding with anticipation. Polite manager approached. "Mr. Ethan? Young Mr. Barron is waiting for you in the lounge." As the door opened, Ethan saw Barron Trump sitting at a table, his gaze calm yet sharp. "Please take a seat," Barron said, his voice composed. "We'll begin here." The meeting between a poor taxi driver and a young man from a powerful family seemed to have little in common. But sometimes the most extraordinary connections arise from the most unlikely circumstances. Why would Barron Trump, someone who had everything, choose to care about the life of an unknown driver? Follow this emotional journey to uncover the unlikely bond between two individuals from seemingly different worlds. The story begins. The heavy rain fell relentlessly, tapping on the car roof like an uninvited rhythm. Barron Trump, the youngest son of the former U.S. president, sat silently in the back seat of his private car. His two bodyguards sat in the front, driving through the rain-soaked streets of New York. "Sir, we will be at the hotel in 20 minutes, the driver announced. Barron nodded without replying. His gaze was drawn to the taxi ahead. Through the fog glass, he could see the driver hunched over the steering wheel. The way the man sat, tense and desperate, triggered an odd feeling of unease in Barron. Suddenly, the taxi veered to the curb and stopped. Out of curiosity, Barron ordered the driver to stop as well. The two bodyguards exchanged hesitant glances but complied. The young celebrity stepped out, his shiny shoes splashing in the puddles as he approached the taxi. He noticed the driver with his head in his hands, shoulders trembling. Barron gently tapped the window. The man flinched and rolled the window down. His face was weary, tears streaking down his cheeks. "Are you okay?" Barron asked softly. The driver shook his head. "I don't know how much longer I can do this. My family is hungry, the rent is due, and I have no idea what to do," he choked out. Barron's heart tightened. He had never witnessed such raw despair. "Can I help you?" Barron's voice dropped, filled with genuine concern. The driver hesitated, his red-rimmed eyes scanning Barron. Then, realizing who was standing before him, he didn't know how to respond. "Help me? I don't think anyone can," he mumbled. "Let me try," Barron said, his tone firm. The calmness in his voice made the older man relent. "My name is Ethan. I've been driving this cab for 13 years, but lately everything is falling apart. My wife's hospital bills, my kids' school fees. I can't keep up," Ethan said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Barron listened intently, his gaze unwavering. He had grown up with wealth, but Ethan's story hit him like a punch. "Please don't think I'm begging. I've worked my whole life, but it feels like the whole world is against me," Ethan added, his voice breaking. Barron stepped back, deep in thought. The bodyguard stood nearby, observing, but said nothing. "I'm staying at the Waldorf," Barron finally said, handing Ethan a small card with his assistant's contact information. "Come see me tomorrow morning. We'll figure something out." Ethan stared at him in surprise. "Will you really do that for me?" Barron smiled. Gently. "Sometimes all we need is someone willing to listen. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. All right?" Ethan nodded, his tears now mixing with relief and disbelief. As Barron walked back to the car, he knew for certain that both his life and Ethan's life would be changed forever. The next morning, Ethan stood outside the grand entrance of the Waldorf, his hands trembling as he gripped the card Barron had given him. The opulence of the building overwhelmed him, and for a moment, he considered walking away. But then he thought of his family, of his wife's fragile smile, of his children eating dry bread for dinner. He took a deep breath and walked in. Barron sat waiting in a private lounge, accompanied by his assistant and bodyguards. When Ethan walked in, still drenched from the morning drizzle, Barron stood up and greeted him with a warm smile. "You've made it," Barron said, his voice warm. Ethan nodded, his voice thick with emotion. I didn't think you'd actually do this." Barron gestured for him to sit. I never say things I don't mean, Barron replied. Ethan began recounting his story. His wife's illness, mounting debts, the burden of raising children. Barron listened intently, his expression growing increasingly serious with every word. When Ethan finished, Barron leaned forward. Here's what we're going to do, Barron said. I'll cover your wife's medical bills and pay off your debts, but more importantly, I want to help you rebuild your life. Ethan was stunned, his eyes wide. Why are you doing this for me? Barron smiled gently. Because I can. And because people like you deserve a second chance. Ethan dropped his head into his hands, sobbing uncontrollably. For the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of hope. As Barron's assistant began making plans to assist him, Ethan realized that this meeting wasn't just a moment of kindness. It was the beginning of a new chapter in his life. The following days passed in a whirlwind. Barron's assistant reached out to Ethan, requesting all the necessary paperwork, bills, debts, and everything weighing on him. Ethan didn't fully understand how such a young celebrity could have so much influence, but he didn't question it. This morning, Barron requested to meet again. This time, things were different. Ethan would be driving Barron around. As Barron settled into the back seat, followed by his 2 towering bodyguards, Ethan felt a rise of tension. He had driven countless passengers in his life, but none like this young man. Take us to the places you usually go, Barron said, leaning back comfortably. Ethan adjusted the rearview mirror. Are you sure? My route doesn't have much to offer. Barron smiled softly. I want to see your world. The taxi rolled through the crowded streets, and Ethan wondered why Barron wanted to sit in this old car. He drove past familiar sights. A rundown grocery store, a street corner where kids sold cheap trinkets, and the park where his wife used to take the kids when she was healthy. Barron observed it all, his eyes capturing every detail. This city looks so different from this angle, he murmured. Ethan glanced at Barron through the rearview mirror, unsure of what he meant. Don't worry, Barron said calmly. I have a plan. Ethan's heart began to race. The journey continued with Barron asking questions about his life. They stopped by a small diner where Ethan usually parked to buy a cheap cup of coffee, too little money for anything else. As Ethan sipped his coffee in the taxi, Barron broke the silence. You've been through a lot, haven't you? Ethan hesitated, gripping the cup tightly. Life hasn't always been kind to everyone, sir. Tell me about your wife, Barron asked, his voice gentle. Ethan's voice cracked as he replied. Anna is the strongest woman I've ever known. But cancer, it doesn't care how strong you are. We sold everything we had to pay for her treatment. Now she's at home, but... His voice trailed off. Barron leaned forward, his youthful face displaying a compassion far beyond his years. And your children. They're good kids, Ethan said, forcing a smile. But it's hard to watch them grow up knowing their father can't give them what they need. There are times when I don't even have enough money for dinner. Barron's bodyguards shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't a story they were accustomed to hearing. Barron took a deep breath. Ethan, you don't deserve this pain. No one does. Ethan's eyes welled up. Never before had a passenger shown such genuine interest in his life, let alone someone like Barron Trump. That evening, Ethan drove home, exhausted but filled with hope. As he stepped out of the taxi, his eyes landed on an envelope tucked under the windshield wiper. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside, there was a handwritten note. Ethan, this is just the beginning. You've worked too hard for your family, and it's time someone acknowledged that. Don't give up hope. Tomorrow you'll understand what I mean. Barron. Along with the letter was a check. When he saw the amount, $10,000, Ethan gasped. His legs gave way, and he leaned against the car to steady himself. Tears streamed down his face, but this time they were tears of joy and hope. He rushed into the house, calling out, Anna, you won't believe this. Anna, weak but smiling, sat up on the couch. Their children gathered around, wide-eyed as Ethan shared Barron's incredible kindness. His youngest daughter asked, Why would someone help us like this? Ethan's voice caught in his throat. Because sometimes, angels come from the most unexpected places. Meanwhile, Barron stood by the hotel room window, gazing out at the city lights. His mind was spinning with new ideas. This wasn't just about helping Ethan, it was about changing his life. The next morning, Ethan woke with a strange feeling, a mixture of hope and apprehension. The check Barron left behind was enough to cover some of Anna's medication and a bit of rent. But inside, he still felt uneasy. Why would someone like Barron Trump, a young man from a billionaire family, care about a nameless taxi driver like him? That morning, Ethan's eldest son, Liam, asked, "Dad, do you think that rich guy really cares? Or is he just doing this for the cameras?" Ethan hesitated, but Anna spoke up first. Her voice was weak but firm. Kindness isn't always motivated by something. Sometimes people do the right thing simply because they can. Ethan knew she was right, but Liam's words still lingered in his mind. Was there a catch to Barron's help? That afternoon, Ethan's phone rang with a call from an unfamiliar number. "Hello, Mr. Ethan. This is Barron's assistant. He'd like to meet with you. Again tonight at the same place as before." Ethan agreed, but his heart tightened. He wondered if this meeting would be the end of the help or the beginning of something he couldn't control. As Ethan drove to the meeting, his hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. He parked outside an upscale cafe where Barron had requested to meet. This was a place Ethan could never imagine stepping into, with its sparkling glass windows and a parking lot full of expensive cars. A tall bodyguard waved him over. "Mr. Trump is waiting inside." When Ethan entered, he saw Barron sitting at a corner table. He wasn't alone. There were two bodyguards and a woman who appeared to be his assistant. Barron waved, his face lighting up as Ethan approached. "Ethan, it's good to see you," Barron said warmly. Ethan sat down, his hands still shaking. "Thank you for everything, the money you gave us. It's more than I ever dreamed of." Barron smiled but leaned forward, his expression growing serious. "Ethan, I need to ask you something. Be honest with me. What do you think it would take to get your family back on its feet?" Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief. You don't understand. Anna's treatment is so expensive, and we've lost so much already." Barron nodded, his gaze unwavering. "If I could help you start over, debt-free, without worry, just a fresh start, what would you do?" Ethan felt his throat tighten. Was this a dream, or was Barron asking for something in return? He looked at Barron, unsure how to react. Those words seemed too good to be true. "Start over? I don't understand. What do you mean?" Barron leaned back, folding his arms. "I want to invest in you, Ethan. You're a good man, you work hard, and you love your family. I have the resources to help you climb out of this hole once and for all." Ethan's heart raced. "But why me? You don't even know me," he said, his voice tinged with disbelief. Barron hesitated for a moment, his youthful face suddenly becoming serious. "Because I can't stand to see good people suffer, and I believe in second chances. But this isn't charity, Ethan. I need you to promise me something." Ethan's stomach twisted. Here it was, the condition for the help. "What do you need me to do?" Barron leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I need you to be willing to try. Whatever I give you, use it wisely. Build something, anything, as long as it can last. This isn't about money. It's about changing your life." Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes. No one had ever trusted him like this before, but would he have the courage to bet on himself? I don't know if I can do it," Ethan whispered. "You can," Barron said with certainty. "And I will be with you every step of the way." Ethan couldn't sleep that night. Barron's offer kept swirling in his mind. But each time hope rose, a faint voice of doubt whispered, what if he failed? What if Barron realized he wasn't worthy of such efforts? The next morning, Ethan sat by Anna's bedside. Her once bright eyes now reflected the shadows of illness, but she still offered him a weak smile as he held her hand. "You're quiet," she said softly. Ethan hesitated, then told her about Barron's offer. Anna listened intently, her hand trembling slightly when he finished. She spoke, You deserve this chance, Ethan. We all do. But what if you fail? Ethan's voice faltered, his eyes brimming with tears. I don't know where to start. Anna squeezed his hand tighter. You've kept this family going for years. You've fought harder than anyone I know. If anyone can do it, it's you. Ethan wiped his eyes. Her words gave him strength. He knew he had to act. That afternoon he called Barron. I'll do it, he said, his voice steady. All right, Barron replied. Meet me tomorrow. It's time to start planning your new beginning. Ethan hung up the phone, a strange feeling stirring in his chest. A mixture of fear and hope. When Ethan arrived at the meeting, he saw Barron waiting, surrounded by a team of experts, lawyers, financial advisors, and even a business consultant. It was overwhelming, but Barron's calm demeanor kept Ethan grounded. This isn't just a gift, Barron began. This is an opportunity. I want you to build something to secure your family's future. What's your dream, Ethan? Ethan stood still, the dreams he'd carried for years fading into the background. Survival had consumed every moment of his life. Finally, he spoke. All my life, I've wanted to own a small taxi company, a reliable company that treats drivers well. Barron nodded thoughtfully. Then we'll make that happen. In the next few hours, the team outlined a plan. Barron's investment would cover the initial costs, but Ethan would have to run the company wisely. It was daunting, but for the first time in years, Ethan felt a glimmer of hope. When the meeting ended, Barron pulled Ethan aside. This is your second chance, he said. Don't let fear hold you back. Ethan nodded, his throat tight. For the first time, he believed life could change. The journey wasn't easy. Ethan poured everything into building the taxi company, often working late into the night. Problems kept arising. Delays in permits, cars needing repairs, drivers quitting. But Ethan refused to give up. Anna grew weaker, and the medical bills kept piling up. Despite some progress, Ethan still felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. One evening, as he worked on the company's budget, Liam approached hesitantly and said, Dad, I found a part-time job after school. I can help you pay the bills. Ethan felt his chest tighten. You're just a kid. You shouldn't have to worry about these things. Liam shrugged, responding, I learned from you, Dad. You never give up. Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes as he pulled his son into a tight embrace. Thank you, Liam. I promise everything will be all right. What no one knew was that Barron had quietly been monitoring Ethan's progress. One day, Barron's assistant called. Mr. Trump wants to visit your family, she said. When Barron arrived, he brought not only good news but also a life-changing surprise for Ethan. Ethan could hardly believe his ears when Barron's assistant called to arrange the meeting. Mr. Trump wants to meet your family, she said. These words were unbelievable, and Ethan wondered why someone like Barron would care about him. A struggling taxi driver. The day of the meeting arrived. Ethan's modest apartment had been tidied up, but he still felt self-conscious about the peeling wallpaper and old furniture. Anna, though weak, remained determined, sitting upright in her wheelchair to greet their guest. Liam, anxious, adjusted his shirt, trying to appear neat. When Barron arrived, his presence filled the room. Bodyguards stood near the door, scanning the surroundings. However, Barron's warm smile put everyone at ease. I wanted to meet the faces behind this incredible journey, Barron said, shaking Ethan's hand firmly. He sat with the family, asking about their struggles, dreams, and hopes for the future. After some time, Barron handed Ethan an envelope. Inside was a check that left Ethan speechless. This isn't charity, Barron said. This is an investment in a good man and his family. But it didn't end there. Barron's next words left Ethan's family stunned, and tears began to fall. Ethan opened the envelope again, and this time he noticed another paper beneath the check. It was a deed to a house. Barron had bought Ethan and his family a modest but beautiful home for them to live in, rent-free. Anna gasped, her hand trembling as she reached for Ethan's hand. This can't be real, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Barron smiled. Your family deserves a friend, a fresh start. This house is in a good neighborhood, with better schools for Liam, and it's closer to the city, making your work more convenient. Think of it as a foundation for the new life you're building. Ethan, overwhelmed, sank to his knees, unable to contain his emotions. I don't know how to thank you, he choked out. Don't thank me, Barron replied sincerely. Succeed. Show the world what a person can do when given a second chance. The family moved into their new home just a week later. For the first time in many years, they felt hope blossoming in their hearts. However, life still had one final challenge for them, one that would test Ethan's resolve and Barron's faith in him. As things began to improve, disaster struck. One of Ethan's drivers was involved in an accident, throwing his business into chaos. The cost of repairs was steep, and the injured driver needed financial assistance for medical bills. Ethan faced a difficult decision: pay the driver and delay the company's growth, or use the money to expand the business for the future. Ethan struggled with the decision, but Anna's words echoed in his mind. You've always been the one to bring people together. Don't let fear lead you. Determined to do the right thing, Ethan used part of the money to help his driver. Word of his kindness quickly spread, and many other drivers came to him, eager to work for someone they could trust. Ethan's company began to grow not because of luck, but because of the values he was pursuing. Ethan gripped the man's hand tightly, his heart swelling with emotion. He realized that the change Barron had sparked wasn't limited to his own family. It had spread far and wide, creating lasting transformations. One late afternoon, as the sunset painted the sky in shades of red, Barron made a surprise visit. He stood outside the gates of Ethan's home, gazing at the small house and hearing the laughter and conversation echoing from within. Not stepping inside, he simply smiled in satisfaction, quietly turning away, leaving behind a short note placed on the doorstep. Ethan, thank you for making me believe that one good deed can spark a change in the world. I am proud of you. Keep spreading this light. Barron. Ethan read those words, and an indescribable feeling welled up inside him. He knew that, though the journey was far from over, with the love of his family, the support of the community, and his belief in the goodness of people, he was ready to move forward, stronger than ever. And somewhere, amidst the bustling streets or in the quiet corners of the world, the light from these small acts of kindness continued to spread, connecting strangers' hearts and creating a better world. This story serves as a powerful reminder of the strength of compassion and the life-changing impact of second chances. Have you ever received unexpected help from someone that changed your entire life? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice could be a source of motivation, inspiring others and fostering positive change. If you found this story meaningful, don't hesitate to share it with your friends and family, so together we can spread the message of perseverance and kindness. Thank you for supporting the channel. Please like, share, and subscribe to receive the latest updates. The stories are collected from various sources and do not represent any individual or organization. They are shared with the intention of spreading human values in life and have been rewritten with the support of AI. If there are any mistakes, kindly overlook them with understanding. Wishing you all the best in life.